Beautiful. So welcome to our July key principle of the month. We're talking about conditions and circumstances. Right, but before we begin, let's just come into the space and just take notice of where you're at mentally. What are some of the thoughts that are running around your head? Some of you in Australia have had a whole day, a whole Sunday. You folks in Europe, you've had a whole night and you might have woken up with some thoughts. So how are you mentally? What are some of the things that are running around your head right now? Just take notice. No need to do anything with it. How are you mentally? And take notice of any emotions that are coming up, any feelings. How are you emotionally at the moment? What's going on? And again, just take notice. No need to push anything away. No need to try and do anything about it or do processes or anything like that. Just let it be there. And also physically, just take notice of what's going on for you. Are you comfortable? Are you uncomfortable? Are there any bits of you that are screaming out for attention? Again, just take notice. No need to do anything about it. And also take notice of how you are spiritually. How's your higher self? What's going on there? What's your greatness got to say at the moment? Where are you at? Say hi to your greatness. And while you're saying hi, say hi to everybody in the space. Just have a look around the screen. It's nice to bring the energy into the room as though we are in a room, in a space together. Right? So, yeah, just have a look around. Have a look at who's here with you. Have a look at yourself on the screen. Go, oh, yeah, I've got, do your hair. Find all the bits that are out of place. Cool. So, who'd love to bring us in? I'd love to hear what what you're creating, what's going on for you, what you're not creating, or whatever. Yeah, how are you enjoying the sessions? Anything, just to bring us into the room while we're still waiting for people to come in, because I don't want to start framing up the session until everybody's here. Otherwise, they'll get lost. So who's going to bring us in? Looking. Asha, you're it.
I'm it. Hello, everybody. Good morning from London. So I am creating something amazing that has been my heart desire for a very long time and currently stuck on conditions. So it's a show. It's a tango show. And it's everything I've ever wanted and more. And it's sort of happening backwards, you know, how it is with magic. It's sort of like things popping up here and there, and they're slowly coming together. And now I'm about to take a massive step that's really going to tie it together. And I am completely stuck in how I'm not perfect, how I'm not ready, how I don't know how to. And I feel that this session is bang on time for me. So looking forward to exploring further.
Awesome. Thanks, Asha. That's perfect. Of course, it's perfect. And of course, you've just finished another whole creation with Natural Success Poland, which is just amazing, epic. For those of you, can I share what you did in Natural Success Poland? For those of you that don't know, Asha has just translated all of William's CYD videos into Polish, which is just an epic effort. So yeah, congratulations on that. And of course, congratulations on your show. I've been hearing about that. That is awesome, you know. That's awesome. And welcome. I'm sure you'll get what you need out of this. And just on that note, we will have one more quick share in a moment, but just on that note, everybody set an intention. Thanks for bringing that up, Aisha, indirectly. But we're talking about conditions and circumstances. So now that you know the theme of the session, set an intention for yourself because you know that you'll get what you intend to get. So just take a moment. With anything that you do, it's important to have an end result, right? It's important to have an intention because without an end result, without an intention, it's kind of fluffy. You don't know what's aligned with where you're going and what you need to get rid of, right? What you need to not pay attention to. As we know, we normally only pay attention to 2,000 bits of information out of everything that's available, right? So how do you choose which 2,000 bits you pay attention to? Well, you can allow it to happen unconsciously and then it's egoically driven, or you can set an intention, you can have an end result. When you have an end result, that allows you to choose which 2,000 bits come in and what you don't pay attention to, right? And that's kind of what our session is today. It's part of what our session's about today. All right, let's have another share and then we'll get into the session. Who'd love to share what they're creating or what they're not creating? Cass, you're it. Welcome.
Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm from Windsor, UK. I just want to say I'm so excited to be here. I always love your sessions, and I've been sort of closing out a cycle that has been really painful, but I just feel like I'm right on that point of moving into a new one. So I'm really excited about what comes up today. So thank you so much. These sessions are always brilliant. So yeah, that's it really.
Thanks, Cass. And thanks for your share. You kind of threw that in the vulnerable part about closing off a cycle, which is a painful one, and it's not something to be focused on, but it's part of your current reality, right? So it's great that you're here and you're looking forward to that next bit, that doorway. Because as we all know as creators, it's just about taking a step through that doorway, right? Do we have the will to take the step? And that's really what today's about, right? So let's get into it. Let's get into it. Conditions and circumstances. Right. So, when I tuned into this session, the way that the session came about was really comical, right? Aisha, you were talking about the show going back to front. So the call was put out, for the key principle of the month. And I just read the post in our moderators circle. And I just got these two words, conditions and circumstances, right? I've no idea where they came from. So I just put that in. And some time passed, I forgot all about it. And then I got a message from Nadia saying, by the way, you're doing the key principle of the month and can you send us the structure? And I thought, oh gosh, and I was about to hop on a session with a client. So I just wrote out the structure in that moment. I didn't even know what I wrote. And there it was, the transformational structure for those of you that have done Creative Warrior. I think it's in Creative Warrior. The theme, the premise, the antithesis and the thesis, and just threw it out there. And there it was, there it sat, right? And I got busy with my coaching and moving and getting ready to go away for quite some time. And then I came back to it and went, oh, okay, what was I thinking? How did this, what was I actually going to talk about, right? So it came about in this really odd way where I threw the topic and the structure out there without thinking about it. Right? And then I had to come back to it and read the structure that I wrote as though someone else had written it, and go, oh, okay, so what's this about, right? So what I got to is that what it's about is that what you focus on grows. Right? We know that focus creates your reality, but not just that. You know, what you focus on, it doesn't just create your reality, but it also expands. Right? So you can probably already start to see where this is going, right? So you focus on conditions, circumstances, or you focus on your end results. Whatever you focus on expands. Right? So I was considering that, and what came to me was when you make your choices, right? What are you actually doing? When we make our choices every morning, as I assume most of us do, who is making their choices every morning right now? Oh, so majority, right? And some may not be, and some may not be doing it every morning, right? But most of us are. And those who aren't, hopefully it's just a little glitch and you're just on the way to coming back to it, right? Because it's a powerful thing. But it's only powerful if it's done in a specific way. So what is it that we're doing when we're making our choices? Right? Because it's like you can say the choice and go choose the end result of blah 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 blah. And you know, sometimes it can have this feeling, this energy of just, oh yeah, I'm just saying, you know, I choose the end result of, yeah, this is something that I'd want, you know, this is something that I'd like. This is something that I'd love in my life. And yes, it is about that, right? But it's about more than that. It's about more than that. Because what you're doing, you know, when you step in, the reason we do the circle, what you're doing is you're stepping into the circle so that you align with the energy of that end result, right? And we know that. But why do we align with the energy of that end result? Is it so we can just stand there in a circle and go, yes, here I am, you know, I've wished for it, I can feel it, I know it's going to happen, and bang, we expect that it's going to appear? No, right? It's not that. It's not that. We're aligning with the energy of the end result so that you can see what's obvious, right? That's why we do the vision, current reality, and bridge, right? So you can see what the obvious next step towards it is, right? So when you're saying that I choose this end result, what you're saying is I choose this end result, right? I choose, this is the direction I'm choosing to go towards. I'm choosing to take the steps that are going to lead me to this end result. Right? And it's a really important thing to remember that it's not about wish making, right? We're not here to make wishes. We're not just going, oh yeah, I'll wish for this. Otherwise we'd be saying, I'll wish for this, you know, I wish I had. No, we're choosing. We're choosing an end result. It's choice making, not wish making. Right? You're consciously choosing to live a life, to live your life in the way that makes these things happen. That's what you're choosing, right? You're choosing to focus on the things that align with that end result. And you're choosing to take actions that head directly towards it, right? That's what it is. So what you're doing, what we're all doing, hopefully, is we're choosing to do what it takes. Right? We're choosing a life where we do what it takes. We're choosing that we use our will, right, to do what it takes. As in Asha, right? There's this thing she's wanted to do. She didn't just go, oh yeah, I wish I could create a tango show. Oh, wouldn't that be nice, right? It's like, oh, far out. There's this stuff happening and I've got to do these things and I don't really know how and I don't really know how it's all going to come together. But I'm choosing, you know, I'm going to use my will to do what it takes, right? And same with Cass. You know, I've got this pain, I've got these feelings, I've had this stuff happen, but I'm choosing to do what it takes to walk into my future and not be stuck in the past, not be stuck in the pain. right? So what often happens is that, is that people do make the choices as though they're wishes, right? And we've all been there, right? So if you've been there, don't feel bad. It's not about making anybody wrong. Like I've been there where it's sort of felt a bit more like, oh, I wish this would come true, why isn't it happening yet, right? But we kind of have this thing of going, hoping that it's going to come through in some magical way because we're magicians, right? We go, oh yeah, I'm a magician. So if I wish for this, if I align with this energy, it's somehow magically going to come through. And it's true, it is, right? But magic isn't what we think it is in our mind, in our egoic mind. Magic isn't what you in your egoic mind will think it is. Because if you think about it, like the magician on stage, right? That magician they still have to spend time learning the tricks, right? They don't just turn up and go voila, and the rabbit comes out of the hat, right? There's some things that need to happen. And I actually looked up what the definition of magic is. And the definition of magic is, hang on, I'm just going to look at my notes. Magic is the power of apparently influencing events by using mysterious or supernatural forces, right? So magic is the power of apparently influencing events by using mysterious or supernatural forces. So if you listen to that, right, it's influencing events and using supernatural forces, right? And what we can tend to do is get stuck in this way of thinking where we think that some new supernatural force is going to come along and create this thing for us. So when I first made my home choice, because it felt so impossible, it felt so far away and like just out there, right? This home that I envisioned. I actually wished that someone would give it to me, right? I actually thought, well, the only way this is going to come about, it was just in my inexperience, right? Because I didn't think I had it in me. So I thought, oh, the only way that this is going to come about is if somehow it's gifted to me, right? So we can go about thinking that that some supernatural force, some kind of thing will happen and will create these things for us, right? And what's wrong with that? Well, there's nothing wrong with that in one way, right? Because when we're magicians and we do this work, we apply this work functionally, then magical things do happen, right? All of a sudden things happen. We actually influence the circumstances and the conditions around us. We actually influence the energy of the people around us, so that things come about in the most unexpected way, right? So it does happen. But what's wrong with thinking that that there are choices, that our end results are going to come about in some magical, way, that it'll be gifted to us in some way, by the universe or some wealthy relative that we didn't even know existed, whatever it is, What's wrong with thinking that? Well, the thing that's wrong with thinking that is that while we're doing that, we're living our life caught up in conditions and circumstances, right? And catering to conditions and circumstances, right? So hopefully I'm going into, creating a very fine distinction there, and I'm hoping that you can grab it. So we'll have a couple of shares in a moment about what you got out of this, just so I can make sure that what I'm saying is landing the way that I'm intending it to land. Because if it's not, then I'll just reframe it a little bit, right? So what I mean by that is that anything that's not directly related to your true end results, is really catering to conditions or circumstances, right? So, yeah, so we do have a supernatural force. We do have access to a supernatural force. But what is that force? It's our intuition. Right? Because our intuition has the power, has the ability, our greater self, opening up to all of those bits of information, has the ability to tell us the most direct route, the most direct way to our end results. Right? But then we're making a choice, and what we're doing is we're choosing, we're saying we will walk that route that our intuition, our supernatural power has told us through the bridge, through observing what's obvious. Right, so I'm going to pause there, and I'd love for someone or someones to just feed back to me what you got out of what I just said, just so I can check that it's landing before I move on. So what did you get out of that? Kath, hi, good to see you.
That's me. Actually really similar to yours. Sometimes when I really drop out of that creative zone and I'm doing my choices, and one's to have a house, and a lot of the time I'm good with it, and every now and then I really slide back and think, oh, I'll buy a lotto ticket, and why can't I wish that the lotto ticket would win to get me the house? And I even did a spirit guidance on it, and it was so funny because it said, you really haven't got it, have you? It's creating, it's the same for everything. And it referenced the golfing thing where the guy could hit a ball, but then he asked, how do you hit a swing ball or something else? And the coach said, it's all the same. So whatever you're creating, you don't need to be slipping back thinking, if I have this certain condition met, if I could have that money by winning it, then I could get my end result. So that's what I got.
Yep. Awesome. Thanks, Kath. Great share. Yeah, so that shows me that it is landing. Yes. Thanks, Kath. Who else would love to tell me what's landed for you so far? What did you get out of it? Val.
Hi,
There?
Beata. Hi, everyone. Yeah, it's similar to what you were saying about wish becomes a hope, and hope actually is not integrated the way. If you're 100% committed and you're focused on your end result, what happens is you bypass. You don't avoid or compensate. You bypass all the distractions that keep you from your end results. And the way that I've experienced it most recently, a very personal thing that happened, it could have been tragic, but it wasn't. And instead of focusing on what it might have been, I was focusing on, I had quite a few end results that it was my son and daughter-in-law, and we all had similar end results in mind, strangely enough, because there was a common event that was happening, and we were all focused on that. And what that freed us up to do was not wallow in the what ifs and what might affect that end result. Was we were still 100% focused on, thank God they're still alive, thank God we're still focused on what matters. And that a lot of that is what has changed hugely for me over the last year, is noticing. The awareness enables you to notice when you're being distracted or you're allowing those things. I think sometimes we've been so conditioned to think we must mourn and we must, wring our hands and shows that we really are feeling upset, but we don't need to do that. We don't need to keep advertising it. We can just be with the situation and still stay focused on where we're heading ultimately. And that 100% focus helps me to work through the conditions and circumstances that would have totally distracted me previously. I think that's the biggest single shift I've had over the last year with NS, and that's understanding that, acknowledging where I am, not beating myself up about where I am, but actually just refocusing. And so what you say about when you do your choices, they can be written. The gut feel with me is, if it doesn't feel that it's integrated with my end result, it's just a wish. It's not a choice. It's kind of all blends into oneness, if you like, within yourself. And I find that that's when the little miracles and big miracles all start happening. And it is as if by magic, but it's all coming from that predisposition that you've chosen to take. And that's basically what and everything you've said so far is literally mirrors what I've been discovering, and it's ongoing. You can slip out of it so easily, as you said. You know, it's easier now to get back where I should be and where I want to be. Most importantly, it's not should.
Beautiful.
It's what I want, basically.
Yeah. So what you're talking about there is making that choice, right? And go, you know, without going into the story of it.
Yeah.
There's a societal expectation, right?
Yeah.
And it's about making the choice and going, I'm choosing to focus on the end results rather than the conditions, the circumstances, part of which can be, how do other people view me, right?
Exactly.
So great.
Yeah.
So sounds like you're applying things beautifully, right? So you're yes. Thanks,
Not
Val.
always.
Great share.
I still slip off sometimes.
Of course, we all do. Yeah, we all do. It's not about never falling off. It's how quickly do you get back on. That's the whole point. Yeah. All right, let's have one more share before we move on. So what's landed for you about the choices and all of that? Oh, we're going to have two, Helena and Carolyn.
All right. Yes. What I got was that when you know that definition you had of magic is kind of like an old way of defining magic, and we can sort of fall into that definition by hoping to win the lottery, or hoping to something mysterious happens to get our end results, and that's, you know, as magicians we know that that magic is following our intuition. So when I sometimes succumb to that, you know, wishful thinking, it's actually what I get now is that that's actually abandoning my genius, that then I don't have that, you know, connection to a genius that knows the shortest way to my end result, that I for a moment stop believing that I have an intuition, that I have my greatness, that I have my genius. That's what I got.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Helena. And Carolyn.
Thank you. So I have a choice that says to run 3 miles by the end of December 2023. And I have this set of conditions that said I don't run and I don't think in miles. So I was like, okay, this is really a choice. This is really a bridge I have to do. And I thought, how am I going to do this? I've had the experience of having COVID with lots of lingering stuff around it. And at this stage, I couldn't even walk the 100, 200 meters down to the river. So I could hear all the conditions. I could hear me going, yes, but you can't. Yes, but you can't. And I'm like, nope. Okay, we have to set a program. So I started this, I don't know what you call it. You do like a minute walk, a minute run, a minute walk, a minute run, but I didn't. I minute slow walk, minute fast walk, 15 minutes. Slowly worked my way up, and I could hear every time I went down to the gym, this whole list of conditions that I had about why I was not going to the gym. And the circumstances, look, you're too tired, too much work, rattling away. And the tension, holding that tension and going, no, this is a choice. if I've made this choice, this is where I'm going, I need to take action, because it moved from a bridge into a secondary choice because it's going to take time. And when I hit the 2.5 Ks, that I could 30-second walk and 1.5 run, it was elation. It was whole body elation, that it wasn't that I was running, it's that I'd made the choice and I'd been able to get to the place where I'd, instead of turning to my conditions or things like that, that I was actually totally in the action of walking towards or running towards my choice. And that was what the feels were when I next went back into my choice, into my vision circle. It was about the idea that I had taken action and followed through. That was almost the adrenaline rush that I got. So that's kind of how I've seen it work. So it's brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Awesome. Thanks, Carolyn. Great share as well. Great share. So yes, you know, what you're experiencing there is what you focus on grows, right? What you focus on grows, and that energy multiplies, right? That energy multiplies. So what's the difference between a circumstance and a condition? Right? I will answer it. We won't have shares because it's just a brief thing, but that's what I kind of got to. Okay, so there's conditions and circumstances, right? And they're kind of similar. There is a bit of a difference, and I'm going to take you just that little bit below the surface, right? So circumstance to me, actually, I'll just give you 10 or 15 seconds to reflect on it. What's the difference between a circumstance or circumstances and conditions? Right. So when I tuned into that, because I was going, well, if there's no difference, why do we say both, right? So there must be a difference. My analytical mind kicked in. There must be a difference. So this is what it is for me, right? It's like, for me, a circumstance is something that's like short term. It's more temporary, right? And when I work with clients, it's the stuff that they come up with that they go, oh yeah, it's something that arises, right? So when I work with clients, for me, it's the thing that they come up with that they go, oh yeah, when this thing passes, then I'll be able to get on with things, right? That's a circumstance, right? When I've taken care of my blah 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 blah, or when I've done this, or when I've got more money, or when I've got more time, or when I've, first I need to, all of those things. So to me, that's a circumstance. It's something that arises. Right? While a condition is more of that, again, if I think of working with people, it's the thing that they believe must exist. Like it's a condition, like weather conditions, but it's beyond that, of course. Sometimes it is weather conditions, right? But the conditions, so something that must exist or that mustn't exist, right? Before they can have what they want. So the condition is a bit of a deeper and a bit of a long-term, long-standing thing, right? So follow me on this. So a circumstance is like connected to the now, right? And again, I was considering this, and I went, okay, so what's the definition of each one? And I'll tell you what the definition is. So a circumstance is, funnily enough, according to the Oxford Dictionary, is a fact or condition connected with or relevant to an event or action, right? So yeah, that confirmed that my perception of it was accurate. Perception is probably not a good word to use in this space, but you know what I mean, how it appeared to me, right? That it's something connected with or relevant to an event or action. while a condition is a situation that must exist before something else is possible or permitted. Right? So a condition is a situation that must exist before something else is possible or permitted. So where does this go wrong, right? So when we do the whole wishful thinking thing, and we're actually living our lives in our ego, which means we're catering to conditions and circumstances, because that's our default, right? Let's face it, catering to conditions and circumstances is our default orientation, right? It's the egoic orientation. So like when we cater to the conditions and circumstances, our energy's directed that way, right? So if a circumstance is something that arises, the more you cater to it, the more stuff's going to arise, right? And I've seen that time and time again. The people that go, oh, I can't do this month, I can't do this program, or I can't afford coaching, or I can't get my money in order, or I can't do this thing because I don't have the time right now, right? Because something's come up with my car, right? And so in some way, their resources get tied up in something, right? So something's come up with my car and my car needs these repairs, or I have to now spend half a day, at the mechanic, or my daughter's bringing her kids around because so I have to mind them because she's sick right now, right? So all this catering that happens every time I come across somebody who's doing that, who goes, oh, I'm not going to do the thing that's true for me yet. I'm just going to wait, because my daughter's sick, right? And that only happens every so often, right? And my car's broken down, right? And that only happens every so often. Who knows this feeling, right? The moment you've catered to that thing, the next thing comes up almost immediately, right? The next thing comes up. So if it was the car to begin with, then it's the sick daughter, or the neighbor who needs help moving, or the really, really good friend who suddenly needs to borrow your van, right? Or whatever it is, right? It's never ending. It's never ending. So the moment that you cater to conditions, to circumstances, the moment you start to cater to circumstances, you just create more circumstances because that's where your focus is, right? There'll be another thing that's going to come up. It never stops. Dealing with them never stops until you stop, right? It never, never stops. It never ends. It's like I used to have this thing where I wouldn't do the stuff that actually mattered until my slate was clean, right? So I'd be like, oh, I'll just get these little jobs done, get them out of the way. And then when I can see some people laughing, I know some of you can relate, right? I'm just going to get these little jobs out of the way. And then when I've got a clean slate, then, it never stopped, right? The list just grew bigger. Oh, just clear my list, right? It just doesn't work, right? And we have this tendency to do the easy stuff first, right? We go, oh yeah, I'll get these other things done because I know how to do them. And then when they're out of the way, then I can focus on this challenging thing, on my bridge, on the thing that actually matters to me, right? Then I'll be able to focus on it. Never going to happen. Never going to happen. Right? So basically, it's just going to make it grow. The list is just going to grow bigger because your ego goes, oh, she's focusing on the list. Great. If I just put more things on the list, she'll never get to the stuff that really matters, right? And that's what we do. We focus on it and make it grow. So that's on the surface, right? Let's go deeper. This is where conditions come in. Because we can think about conditions a little bit like the weather, it's the conditions around us, but it goes a bit deeper than that, right? So on the more surface level, I'll start on the surface, but then I'll go into the into the deeper stuff, right? So on the surface level, when we talk about conditions, it's kind of about, people will think that it has to feel good, right? So I'm going to write, but only when I really feel in the mood for writing, because otherwise I'm going to write crap, right? It's a condition, right? If you're going, oh yeah, I'm only going to write if I'm in the mood for writing, well, then you're going to focus on putting yourself in the mood for writing. Right? I used to do that. I used to really, I love walking, right? I absolutely love walking. It clears my mind. I feel inspired. I look around, and especially if it's on the beach where I can look out at the ocean and there's dolphins and whales, and, I absolutely love it. But done dysfunctionally, what I do is I go, oh, I'm not going to write. I'm just finishing my book, right? And when I started it, I'd be like, oh, I'm not feeling very inspired, so I can't write. Right? And I'd go for a 2-hour beach walk, right? Instead of writing, I'd go for a 2-hour beach walk. Felt great, and I felt totally inspired. But of course, by the time I got back, I had a client or I had something else that I needed to get done, right? So the 2 hours that I should have spent writing, that I could have spent writing, I spent trying to get myself feeling inspired, right? It's not going to work. It's not going to work, right? So that's one way that people begin to cater to conditions. They think that that it has to feel good, or that it has to feel a certain way for us to do it, right? There's another part about conditions, right? And it's to do with your dark side. Right? Has everyone here done alchemy? I'll go the other way. Has anyone not done alchemy? Has anyone done just creative warrior but not alchemy? No, so everyone's done alchemy. So you know about your dark side, right? And this is where conditions come in, right? So what the dark side meditation's about is about tapping into the knowing. It's about becoming aware of the stuff that we made up when we were little, about how we get our needs met and how we get what we want, right? So we've all had parents or caregivers, and they were of certain personality types, right? One of 9, and the subtypes, right? And what we learned as children was that when certain conditions existed, we didn't get our needs met, or we didn't get what we wanted, right? And we learned, it's not true, of course, right? But what we learned, we developed a belief that when those conditions exist, we're not going to get what we want, right? It makes us unviable. And unviable just basically means because when you're young, if you don't get your needs met, well, then you die, right? So we make up this belief that if these conditions exist, I'm not going to get what I want, or I'm not going to get my needs met. So we found different ways to work around our parents or caregivers, right, to make sure that we meet those conditions are met, and then we got what we wanted, right? But then we've carried that through life with us, and we continue into our adulthood, acting as though that's the truth, right? So totally unconsciously, we go about putting our energy into making sure that those conditions are met, rather than taking those direct steps towards our end results. Okay, and I'll give you some examples just to help you get a picture of it, to help you get a feel for it, right? So, for me, to use a personal story, the conditions were that my mother had to be happy. She had to be in a good mood, right? There had to be peace. So, and what put my mother in a bad mood was if my brother or my father pissed her off, right? If my brother or my father did something that my mother wasn't happy about, then that reflected on me, right? Because she was in a bad mood. So what did I learn to do? I went, okay, I must control my little brother, poor thing, And I must somehow find a way to control my father by being good, so that he's happy. And then if he's happy, then my mother's happy, and then I get what I want. Hence, I became a peacemaker, right? What better way to go into the world? So what happens now? And I only realized this not long ago, and I'm seeing Ed laughing his head off. For those of you that don't know, Ed's my partner over here. Over here. So, and I didn't realize this until just maybe 2 or 3 years ago, right? Yeah, probably 2 years ago, because it was after I came into this work. For me to create, I created a belief that for me to get what I want, for me to create anything, I must have peace around me. So everyone around me must be at peace, right? So I'd go around making people happy, and I was kind of aware of that, and I knew that that was dysfunctional. But it went even deeper, right? I also developed a belief that I must have a peaceful environment, right? And my mother was, and look, I do love my mum. I'm just using it as an example, right? So don't think that I've got this big gripe against my mother, right? We don't often see eye to eye, but I don't have any bad feelings towards her. But I'm just sharing the truth of how it is, right? So my mum has a personality type where she likes to know what I'm doing all the time. So of course, when I was a child, she was always there, looking at what I was doing. And the only way I could get peace, weirdly enough, was to piss her off, because then she'd go off in a huff and she'd leave me alone for a few hours, right? So what I realized was by the time I was on my second serious relationship with Ed here, I realized that what I actually did, if I wanted to write or if I wanted to create something, I would actually create a fight, right? I would create a fight so that my partner would go off in a huff, and then I'd be like, oh, great, thank God, now I've got a few hours to do what I actually want to do, right? Which totally works against the whole peacemaker thing. But as long as that person that's not happy isn't in my space, I'm cool, right? So you can see how insidious it can be, right? You can see how deep it can go, right? And that's why I wanted to talk on this, because yeah, there's the surface level. And those of you that know me know that I like to go to the core, right? It's like, yeah, there's the surface level, but what's underneath that? I can see a couple of my clients having a little giggle, but what's underneath that? Because I always go, yeah, but what's under that? But what's under that? But what's under that? Right? And this is the thing, right? We go about catering to stuff, right? We go about carrying this belief that we created when we were really, really young, and focusing on creating the conditions that we believe must exist before we get our needs met, before we can create, right? And it can be totally unconscious, right? Until you notice a pattern. Until you notice a pattern. And this is, I'm going to go into the bridge a little bit. I know I haven't talked about how it works well yet, but I'll just jump to the bridge a little bit because I'm here right now, right? And part of the bridge is, if something's familiar, you can bet that you're catering to conditions or circumstances, right? If you go, oh, I've been here before, right? I know this feeling. I know this feeling. Or this is the same situation that happened last time. So to use the example that I just gave you, there was a moment that I realized that, I was kind of getting really picky on Ed. I'd pick on him for things, those little things like, oh, why did you do that? And why did you do things that way? And I'd get picky. And I can't even remember whether I noticed it myself or whether Ed brought my attention to it. But I noticed that I get picky whenever I'm really going for something, right? And then I go, okay, there's a pattern. I know what I get to know what it feels like. So now I go, okay, when I get picky, what's underneath that, right? So there's a bridge there. There's something fit, there's a way that you can step out of it. Anyway, I'll move on. But I just thought I'd throw that little bit in before I go on to, how do we actually create stuff when we've got this really deep-seated stuff, the dark side, the conditions that we think mustn't exist, or the conditions that we think must exist before we can create, right? And of course, sometimes the condition is that I must cater to circumstances. I must, like what Val shared, sometimes the condition is that I must cater to societal norms. I must appear a certain way. I must be accepted by others before I can have what I want, or I must be liked. We're running a program for facilitators at the moment, and that's a big block for a lot of them, right? Instead of facilitating from the heart and speaking what they're passionate about and talking about what truly matters to them, they're focusing on being liked, right? It's never going to work because you dilute your message. It's bland, and nobody resonates with bland, right? So catering to this stuff is never going to get you what you want, right? So what gets you what you want? What gets you what you want? Well, the obvious, right? Going directly for the end result. Going directly for the end result. And Val touched on this in her share, right? Because what happens is when you go directly for the end result, then all those circumstances, all those, those people that need your attention, all those tasks, the to-do lists, just take care of themselves. Right? They absolutely take care of themselves. It's not that the car suddenly fixes itself, right? There's still stuff that needs to be done, but you just don't focus on it. You just go, oh, okay, my car needs to go off to the mechanic. Fair enough. I'm going to do that. And while I'm waiting for my car, I'm going to create my next program, right? Or I'm going to do my writing. Or I'm going to call that person, follow that bridge, right? So you can still do the stuff that needs to be done, right? There's still things that need to happen. There's still things that we need to do to take care of ourselves in the day-to-day. But what's the difference? Is it taking your focus away from what you're creating? Are you using it as an excuse? Right? So when you've got that grown-up daughter who's suddenly dropping your grandchildren off unexpectedly, you go, great, grandkids, awesome, you're here, you hang around, but my plan for today was blah, 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 and you continue with that, right? It takes care of itself. It takes care of itself. And then what you'll notice is that those circumstances don't show up anywhere near as much, right? We actually had that, or I had that happen with our facilitator, with our Magic Cauldron program, right? So I had a client, one of my clients, who was going to do it. She wants to be a facilitator and she was going to do it, but it was quite a time commitment because it's quite a practical type of program, where people do actually facilitate and they, and they coach, and, there was, probably 3 or 4 hours a week of time commitment. And she was saying, no, I can't do it, because, I've got this family situation. I'm just being mindful to not share anything that could, that breaches confidentiality. But there was a family situation and she said, oh, I can't commit until I've sorted out this family situation, right? I don't think I can do it. Maybe I'll do the next one, will you run another one next year? And, and I knew that it wasn't a financial block, right? That the resistance wasn't financial because it was included in the coaching thing, right? So I went, okay, what's underneath this, right? What's going on here? Anyway, we had a quick chat. Didn't take very long, and I said, look, just commit, right? You want to facilitate. Let's just commit for a couple of months, right? Just focus on the thing that you actually want to do. Just focus on your true end result. And let's just see what happens, right? And if the family situation's still there, or if it intensifies or whatever, then, well, we'll deal with it, right? We've got our fortnightly sessions, we'll deal with it. Anyway, so luckily for me as a coach and for my client, she said, yeah, all right, I'll do it. I'll commit to this 3 or 4 hours a week, right? Family situation disappeared, dissolved. It's like it was never there, right? And it was a fairly serious type of thing. That was, quite a few people involved, and there was lots of drama and emotions and all of that. Disappeared. It's like, and in fact, it's the choice that was related to that situation suddenly started to flow, right? So what's the moral of the story, right? There was nothing for this person to do. There was only action to take. We've all heard William say it many, many times, right? There's never anything to do, because all that stuff catering to the circumstances is all about doing, right? Doing this. I've got to do this first. I've got to do that. I've got to do that, right? When you take action, when you use the magic, when you use the magic of your supernatural power, which is your intuition, and you're given that most direct step towards your end result, the end result that you chose, right? That you choose every day. You go, I choose this. I choose to live a life that's going to lead me to that. When you do that, when you use your will to do that, the to-do list disappears. It absolutely disappears. It's like, yes, stuff still needs to be done, but it's no trouble, and it most of the time it doesn't take anywhere near as long as it would have, right? So that's circumstances dealt with. Now, what about conditions? So how do we deal with conditions? The deeper stuff, the big stuff, like those beliefs, right? What are the conditions that have to exist? What are the conditions that mustn't exist? How do we deal with that? Same way. Right? So now I write no matter how I feel. And the amazing thing I've discovered is that when I write and I'm in my shit, it weaves itself into the story, right? It actually weaves itself into my writing. And the book that I'm about to complete isn't actually it's not a fiction book as such, right? It began, I thought it was going to be a manual for teachers and educators and parents, right? It's not. It did turn into a bit of a story, right? So it is a manual, so to speak, but written as a story, right? So that it's more readable, I guess. Well, it is. That's how it's revealed itself to me. But the amazing thing is that when I don't go to the beach before I decide to write, when I'm in my shit, or when I'm in a bad mood, or when I'm feeling a bit tired, or when I'm feeling like I don't really have it, it actually weaves itself into the book, right? It's like I can understand the characters on a deeper level because I'm going through it, right? So it's got more depth, it's got more facets to it, rather than having one-dimensional characters who are always feeling inspired and always doing things the right way. I've got characters that sometimes feel a bit shit or sometimes feel a bit tired, right? Because I write it in. I never would have found that out had I catered to conditions, right? Had I catered to the condition that my whole environment must be peaceful, that I must feel peaceful, that I must feel inspired before I can create, right? And it's the same with my story about my partner, right? If I'm starting to feel a bit of disharmony, I was I was getting ready for this session, so about 10 minutes before I was just focusing on my end result and just really tuning into it. And Ed, God love him, as we say, when we're about to say something about someone, decided that the little bongo drums that my son has sitting on our kitchen bench up here, suddenly he's never played them before, right? He decided in that 10 minutes, decided to just go, and I could feel the emotions coming up. I could feel the thing going, now I can't prepare for but of course I recognized it, right? And I went, oh, okay. So I had a choice in that moment, right? Do I choose to go, Ed, could you stop that noise? I can't focus, right? And in that moment, what am I telling myself, right? I can't focus if there's noise, if there's distractions, if there's stuff going on, right? Or I could go, huh, there's a bit of noise and my body's gone blah, that kind of, you could feel that emotion rising up, right? And I just noticed it and then focused on the end result. And I suddenly didn't hear the drum anymore. Right? It's like it was just this rhythmic background noise, and it actually turned into a bit of okay, I can work with this, right? So that's how we deal with it, right? Focusing on the end result. You know how I said at the start, what you focus on expands or multiplies. I can't remember the word that I used, but it grows, right? So when you focus on the end result, like when I focus on writing, no matter what, that end result actually grows exponentially. Right? When I focus on showing up no matter what, then I run a powerful session or I write powerfully. Right? And it's the same as with the program that I was, that we're running. When our facilitators choose to show up no matter what, we actually had more than one situation, where people would say, oh yeah, I'm going to run this thing. And and then they'd go, oh no, I'm in my shed, I can't do it anymore. Right? And I being me, email back going, no, you made a commitment to yourself. The expectation is that you follow through on that commitment to yourself. Right? And when people run it, then the stuff that came up for them comes out in the session, and it's so powerful, right? It's so powerful. So then all of a sudden, the effect, the end result, grows, right? So focusing on the end result is what makes the end result come about in the most magical ways, because all of a sudden, you're in this heightened state where you really are open to everything, right? You're not just going, oh, I can only work if these conditions are met, which means you're not open to all the possibilities, right? You're going to miss them. You're going to miss the depth of the experience and the breadth of the experience. When you focus on the end result, regardless of the conditions, you get a much deeper experience of it, right? So we're going to do a little exercise in a moment, just in this room here, because it's always powerful to get things for yourself in these sessions, because it's so good for me to be talking and all of that. So we'll do a little exercise, a couple of circles, just in the main room here, so we can capitalize on the group energy. But before we do, I'd love to have a few shares about what you got out of this, what landed for you, what do you relate to, what do you not relate to maybe, or maybe you have some questions, if you don't agree with something, again, bring it out. Everything's on the table. So, Carolyn.
I completely related to the circumstances and conditions, and it was really interesting when I was doing this running that the conditions that the circumstances I first had were, you have been ill for a long time, how are you ever, you've got to be better, you've got to be more well, you've got to be able to breathe to start this. Then when I actually said to myself, no, go ahead with it, the conditions that started coming out were I'm a 2 with a wing of 1, perfectionism. So if I can't complete this, I'm not going to start this. So I was really aware of that playing away in the background. And first thing I had to do was know that. And once I knew that, it's like, hello, really don't need you here. My end result is over here. And so I watched all that play out. So that's why the absolute joy and delight when I did the 2.5 was about, I had sat with both those conditions and those circumstances and seen them and done what I needed to do with them, which is put them to one side. But they did get in my face first of all. And it did go back to my belief. And my belief, obviously, perfectionism, I've got to do it well. And then number 2, if I didn't do that, then my dark side is that I'm bad, which is the worthy. And because I'm not going to put myself in a position of being bad. So, hey, I just won't do it. But it was so great to get rid of all of that and just get on with it. So that really makes sense. And for me, the learning was be able to turn around and go, know my Enneagram, know what it is, not get stuck in it, just go, oh, there you are. How are you playing up in this? Well, not how. What are you doing in these circumstances? So it was brilliant. Thank you. You explained it so clearly for me.
Beautiful. Thanks, Carolyn. And you bring up a really good point, that thing of knowing yourself, right? Going, oh, when I go for something, I know what's going to come up. I know what's going to come up. For me, it's, I know that the moment I go for something, I'm going to notice everything that Ed is doing wrong, right? I'm going to notice it. And now I go, oh, there we go, right? What's coming up? And exactly that, for you. So the belief you made up was that if I can't do it well, then I'm better to not do it, right? Because if I do something and it's not perfect, then it's worse than not doing it. That's the belief that you made up, right? Of course, untrue, because as creators, we know that it's the other way around, right? It's never going to serve you. Awesome. And yeah, as you said, to just put it to one side and go, oh, there you are, lovely. That's nice, little 2-year-old or 1-year-old or 3-year-old. Thanks for letting me know about these dangerous conditions that are existing, that I could get it wrong, right? But, as we know, belief is something that served you once. Yeah. So now that you know, brilliant. And congratulations on doing that. Far out. What an achievement. 2.5, so half a mile to go. Brilliant stuff. Wow, so hey, we're going to be in your part of the world by the time that time of year comes. Can't wait. Can't wait. Awesome. Who else would love to share? Frilly and Mary.
Hey, hi everyone. I just wanted to bring up when I was going for a couple of my choices that were really, really like dear to my heart, and people around me, and I'll say, when I say people, pretty much everyone around me is like, if they knew what I was doing, they'd go, "How stupid you are." They just were like, "You can't do that. That's just the dumbest thing." It was a real put down, and it every now and again it might throw me off my track for a bit, and then I'd just go back, because I had this vision. I had like a real vision of the outcome of these choices, and so then I would just check back in with my vision. No, my vision said that this was how it was going to play out. And I know what they're saying looks right. And I know it sounds right. And I know that I'm making myself just possibly look like the biggest idiot that ever walked on 2 legs. I knew all that, but I'm still going for it. And I just went for it. Yeah. And I just went for it. And voila. Took a while, but I got there. And so happy days. And I don't know if I would have stayed the course as well if I hadn't had the actual vision that I had right at the very beginning, before even I made my choices. I had the vision of don't worry. And when other things were piling in and going like, observe the obvious, you know, and I'm going, observe the obvious. Yeah, that's not going in my favour. And I'd be going like, oh, maybe everyone else is right. But yeah, at the end of the day, I just went, you know, I had the vision, I'm sticking there, and I did, and it all came to pass, or still coming to pass, but came to pass in just totally unexpectedly. And I will add, once I let go, I had to let go of everything to do with the like conditions that I'll know it's coming about because this will happen or that'll happen or whatever. You know how you do, you think, oh, I'll know when it's going to be coming my way. And no, it suddenly out of the blue, something happens, as you know, that you didn't expect, and voila. And I'm like, oh my God, this is just amazing. Can't believe it, really. Even now, I pinch myself even now, like, I made that happen. I'd like to give myself big glory. I did it.
And you must, right? You must acknowledge. That's why we have the completion process. That's why we have the acknowledgement of, yes, I created it, right? Because as we know, we create it all. So
yes.
It's sometimes easy to get caught up in I've created shit. What am I doing to create all this shit? It's really important to acknowledge when we create the stuff that we're actually creating, right?
That we're going for.
Yeah.
And it's shown me how it's given me like I don't know I can't put the word in there, Beata. Not a plan, but just like a pathway of how to create, how creations come about. I haven't worked out how to make them come about quicker, but that might be next.
By not doing that, by not trying to make them come around quicker.
So any
step
condition
one
that came up that was against what I knew would be helpful towards my end result, anything that came up, I just totally went acknowledge, and now let's move on. Acknowledge, almost dismiss. Dismiss. Move on.
Thanks, Frilly. Thank you, Frilly. I'm just trying to catch a couple of things because there was a couple of things that you said that were really great, and I want to just pull them in and bring attention to them, right? So one was, other people were saying stuff that felt right? Made logical sense is what you meant there, right? Other people were saying stuff that made logical sense, but you kept going anyway, right? You were like, no, I've got this end result. And yes, I know, and sometimes you doubt yourself, right? Sometimes things come up and you go, shit, maybe they're right. Maybe it's not going how I blah, 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 blah. Maybe I am crazy, right? But the thing is that when that happens, to then go, no, I'm still focusing on my end result. Right? I'm still focusing on my end result. So that's one thing I wanted to bring attention to, that other people can say stuff that make logical sense. And because that makes logical sense, we can easily fall into this trap of going, oh, maybe they're right. Right? Focusing on the end result is the antidote to that. Now, the other thing you said that I wanted to bring attention to is that whole thing of letting go, right? Because I'm going to take a guess that one of the beliefs that you have is that for you to get what you want, you must control the situation, right?
That's
you must
without
control.
doubt. Yeah.
Yeah,
without
you must control the situation.
Yes.
So the moment you let go, you let go of the condition. You neutralize the condition, then the thing came about. Thanks, really. Great share.
You're
All
welcome.
right, let's move on to Mary's share, and then we'll do our process. So, Mary.
Hi, Beata. Hi, everyone.
Welcome. Hi.
Yeah, I'm really relating to this. I have a writing choice, and the condition is to see to everybody else's needs, which I'm realizing actually half the time is self-imposed, because the belief is if I don't, I'm being selfish, and if I'm being selfish, I'm bad, and if I'm bad, I'm not a perfect person being a number one. It just
I'm going to
feels
guess that.
so.
Sorry to interrupt you. I'm going to guess that all of the time it's self-imposed, not half the time. Anyway, keep going.
Yeah, yeah. So, and interestingly, actually, this week I'm going to Ireland and I'm going to have 4 days on my own. And my sister rang me to say she had 4 days off and could she come and stay? And of course, the 4 days just coincided with the 4 days I had carved out for myself. But I did actually say this time, and she was okay about it, and it's worked out really well for her. But the next thing that has come up, my brother who lost his sight, his daughter has just had a baby and needs to go and see her. And so I'm finding myself thinking, oh my God, I need to, and it's just, I definitely need to develop some of the energy that Frilly has just been talking about. Yeah, keep going, keep going straight, because I'm really seeing how that just for years has kept, by allowing this stuff to come in, has really kept me back, and yeah, so yeah, it's really useful. Thank you.
Awesome. Great share, Mary. And you'll notice, because what we're talking about here, and everyone's been in these situations where things suddenly, and we think, oh, I'm going to be a bad person, a bad brother, bad sister, bad cousin, bad auntie, bad parent, if I don't. The moment that you start to see other people as powerful, they'll become powerful. Right? The moment that you stop catering to it and you go, yeah, look, I can't. I've got stuff on. Those people actually step up and they become self-responsible, and that actually serves them better than us doing stuff for them. Right? They become
Thank you for that.
self-responsible. Yeah.
Thank you for that, because you've just opened it to another dimension that I'm basically, yeah, that's really powerful actually, to remember that I'm not actually serving the other people at all, let alone, I'm
It's all
robbing them of
designed. I
their,
can see. Yeah, I can see Carolyn nodding with number twos, right? With the helper. It's like we think that we're helping when we exhibit these number two behaviors. We think that we're helping and serving the other people. We're not. All we're doing is serving ourselves. Right? Going on, now I'm a good person, right?
yeah.
And
Yeah. All right, thank you. I'm really glad I shared. Thank you.
yeah. It was true, right? Because I'm sure most people here can relate to it on some level. We've all got different behaviors and different personality types, but we can relate to, it's that societal expectation that Val spoke about before. It's like, oh, people will think that I'm a bad blah 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 blah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So great share, Mary. And yes, focusing on where you need to go. So I'm mindful of the time. So let's do some circles, right? So just intend to get what you need out of this exercise, right? Intend that that it will serve your highest good. And just imagine that there's a golden circle in front of you. We're going to do 2 circles, right? We're going to do 2 circles and then bridge it. So circle 1, and you can do this in relation to a stuck choice, or you can do it in relation to living your true nature and purpose, right? So just allow a choice to come to you, or it can be the living true nature and purpose, just so you've got something to hang this off. Okay, and circle 1 is going to be the victim of conditions and circumstances circle, right? So you're going to step in, and this is the circle where you are relating to this choice or to living your true nature and purpose from the orientation of the victim, where you are a victim to conditions and circumstances. Right, so just step in and take notice of what it is that's going on here. Right, how is it when you're in your egoic state, your thinking mind, your analytical mind? Right, what do you think you need to take care of first? What do you need to cater to? What are your patterns? What false end results have you engaged in, right? What are you prioritizing? And also, I will give you a minute or two to write in a moment, but I just want to frame it up so you've got a good idea of the definition of this circle. And also, intend to get some information about your dark side, the deeper stuff, right? What are the conditions that you unconsciously believe cannot exist, or that you unconsciously believe must exist before you can have what you want? What's the stuff that you made up? What's the stuff that worked with your parents that no longer serves you? We'll just take a minute or two to write some things down, and then we'll do circle 2. You might even notice how does your life look? What's happening when you're victim to conditions and circumstances? And just gather the last couple of things that come to you, and we'll complete. And remember that when we finish the session, you can come back and get some more for yourself. And we're just going to clear the space. We're going to move that circle off to the side, clear the space, so you've got a clean space, clean slate, so to speak. And we'll create another circle, and this one's going to be the circle where you are the creator of your true end results. You are choosing and you are using your will to honor the choice that you're making. How does your life look here? What are you doing? How are you behaving? And just jot that down. I'll give you a minute or so to do that. And just gather the last couple of things. And now staying in the energy of that, so staying in the energy of your creator and how your life looks, really connecting to your creator, but also being aware of how it was in the victim circle, you know, when you are catering to circumstances and where you are buying into the conditions. What's obvious? Just notice what's obvious. So from the energy of your creator, but being aware of the other, what's obvious? What's the wisdom that you need to be aware of in relation to that? What's your bridge? Absolutely, write that bridge down and make a note for yourself in your phone, calendar, whatever, to read that tomorrow and the day after and the day after that. You remind yourself, right? Because it's all good to write things down, but if you never read them again, they're going to float away. But if you use your will and read them and remind yourself and go, oh, that's right, that's the thing I've got to remember. Well, that's the thing I'm supposed to do, right? That's when things really happen, when you use your will to take those actions and apply the wisdom, apply the magic, apply the superpower, right? That we've got access to. Great. So you've all got some awesome bits of wisdom, steps to move forward with. Let's have the last couple of shares before we close up. It's been an awesome session. I think it really flowed from something that just appeared from 2 words that occurred to me. I think it's really come together beautifully. So thank you for co-creating it. All right, who's going to be the last couple of shares? And it's anything, you know, the whole session. Anything that landed for you, any clarifications that you like, whatever you get to share. Cass and Val.
Hi. Oh my gosh, did I relate to the trying to navigate my mother and trying to control everybody else so that she'd be happy, so that actually I could get her what I wanted? And have I attracted people like until recently that always needed some attention and to be looked after, so that before I could do what I wanted, I had to take care of them? I did finally get to each heart has its own journey, and that I was kind of robbing them of the potential to sort themselves out. In the victim circle, it was very much about, you know, oh no, you first, I'll sort you first. And in the greatness, it was like, no, actually stand in my power, and that then gives everyone else permission to do the same and is more inspiring. I found it a really, really powerful session. Thank you so much.
Yes, absolutely. What you said. Beautifully put. Thanks, Cass. Yeah, beautifully put. Val. It's there somewhere, that unmute button.
No, yeah, it's at the bottom.
Got
I
it.
keep going to the one on my screen. Yeah, I mean that's so true, Cass. I can feel an affinity with the, you know, I don't need to know what the circumstances were. I just can tell that, you know, what I'm relating to. But that thing you said about Beata, about if you don't let go of trying to help. And this was really true with the situation with my son and daughter-in-law, in the process of transforming my own way of being with them in the circumstance that occurred. I recognized how really amazing they both were. They were dealing with it and they weren't expecting me to do anything for them, and I wasn't imposing myself on them. And so between the 3 of us, we were all still focused on the next move and moving on, and not letting that circumstance have any power over us. They have been amazing, and they continue that way. So it freed us up to focus on what we were still aiming for, and what we, I mean, we're all going to be together in a few weeks' time, and we weren't letting anything get in the way of that, or frighten us off or anything like that. And the other thing that came up for me was I love to dig deep like you on my own stuff. And I was able to dig right back to my 4-year-old child and have a really deep conversation with her, because that's where I was stuck with my relationship with money, which had completely affected how I've been dealing with my house refurb and all that sort of stuff. And so digging into it, there's nothing, I would be too frightened to do that a year ago. But because it's nothing to be frightened of, it was empowering to recognize that, and to forgive myself, forgive what I thought my mother had done, and she hadn't. She was just being a good mum, you know. And so all sorts of things have come out of those things, and all have been melding together as part of the whole process. And so the circumstances that are coming up all the time, as you said, you can either let them control your life, or you acknowledge them. I find acknowledging them actually frees me up to then move on to the next thing. So the whole exercise reinforced so much that's been going on for me in the last few weeks. And, you know, it's a sort of, I don't need reassurance, but it kind of validates everything that you've noticed you've changed, you know, that's changed in myself.
Yes.
And it feels really, really good. It really is a fantastic feeling. It's like at gut level, it's where I feel like I truly am. And you know, it's getting easier and easier to stay in that condition, in that state, if you like, that place where everything just dissipates. All the things that you've been reacting to automatically and unconsciously, just like you say, completely disappear. But you have to do the bits. It's not even a case of having to. You just do it, don't you? You just get
Use
into
your
that
will,
state.
right? You use your will.
Exactly.
And the more times you use your will,
yeah,
the more worn
yeah,
that pathway gets, and
yeah,
then the more
yeah,
practiced you are at getting back on, right?
yeah,
That's what you're
yeah,
talking about.
yeah,
The
yeah,
more you use
exactly.
your
Thank
will,
you.
the more practiced you are at getting
Yeah,
back on the horse when you notice that you're off. And there was one thing that I did want to clarify. I think most people here are quite experienced, but for anyone, you know, new or anyone watching the recording, that whole
yeah,
thing of digging deep, you know, I just want to speak to that, in that I said at the start, what you focus on expands. And I know some
yeah,
people, not in this work, but I know some people who have spent years, decades,
yeah,
digging into
yeah,
their childhood stuff, you know.
yeah,
That's not
yeah.
what it's about, right?
No,
So when I say digging deep, I mean
yeah,
going, okay, what's underneath that? What's the belief, you know, what's
that's
underneath
right.
that surfacey stuff, right? So I
Yeah,
just wanted to
thanks for
clarify that.
clarifying that, because you're absolutely right. It's
Yeah.
not about that horrible old-fashioned way of, you know,
And getting,
trying to get
yeah,
rid of all that stuff. It's not that sort of dig, is it? It's
yeah.
it's unlayering, really, I find. But thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks, Val. Yes,
okay.
it's, you know, we don't need to resolve the childhood trauma. We don't even need to understand it, right? We just
No,
need to be
no,
aware of it.
yeah,
And that's what you really brought good attention to. Thanks,
yeah,
Val. All right, we're a little bit over time, so thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Key principle of the month. And of course, the key principle of the month, right? Let me remind you, you want to read that bridge and what you got in those circles tomorrow and the day after. This is the stuff. I know we're halfway through the month. It's just how it happened. But this is the stuff that you want to apply over the next month. This is the stuff you want to be aware of through the month, right? And in 2 weeks, we're going to have a debrief. So I'm going to create an event that you'll see. I haven't put the date up yet, but it'll be somewhere in about 2 weeks, where we'll have a debrief, where we'll talk about, you know, how are you going with this? How are you going through the month, through your life, being aware of when you're catering to circumstances or when you're buying into the conditions that you made up, right? So hope to see you then. And for those of you watching the recording, hopefully you can make it to the debrief session. Maybe I'll try and make it in a more US friendly time, so it'll be Australian morning. Anyway, thanks everybody. Unmute yourselves so that you can say goodbye to each other, and those watching the recording, make some noise, and I will see you in a couple of weeks.
Thanks,
Cheers,
Beata.
everybody.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
That's a lot,
Bye.
everybody.
Bye.